Bruce, good to see you. Hey, Reggie, we miss you.
Good morning, Jen. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning.
Good morning, Telmar. Good morning, Donnell. I'm going to just call out the names I see.
Well, we are now live on Facebook. So welcome, everybody. We're excited to have you. Thank you for joining 1 Million Cups. This is a weekly event, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 a.m. everywhere across the country. If you have not had a chance to check in on our app, please do so. It helps us keep track of everything that's going on as far as attendees, so we can roll that back up to corporate and make sure they know what an awesome community we have. So again, if you have not logged into the app, please go ahead and do so. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So just wanted to call out 2 events, and folks who are attending, if you have events that are coming up, please drop them in chat, let us know. We're happy to add them into these slides as long as we get it before Wednesday. This evening, there's a young professionals meeting. I'm actually speaking at on personal brand and LinkedIn through the Central Fairfax Chamber. Tomorrow from Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, they are doing a webinar from 1 to 2 on opening your business and weighing those decisions. So Victor Hoskins will be speaking at that as well as other panelists. So do consider signing up for joining that. So we can go to the next slide. So in case you are new to 1 Million Cups, I see a lot of familiar faces, a few new faces. There are 160 chapters across the country. So 9 a.m. every Wednesday, different time zones. We all meet up for coffee, and we work to foster an inclusive environment. So a business owner can apply. It's free. The organizers, who you see 6 or 7 of us here in the meeting, we work with them, coach them on their presentation, get them ready to really bring one challenge question. So as we go through the meeting today, just to give a little bit of expectation setting, our presenter will have 6 to 8 minutes, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. Justin's going to moderate Q&A, and you can have questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll call on you that way as well. So there are different ways you can engage. One of the other reasons to sign up for the app is because we do send an email with information about upcoming presenters. You can also join us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to have you join and follow us there. You'll get news and info. If you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, we also have groups, so you can share your events there, share blogs, share valuable content, whatever is exciting that you want to let us know. We'd love to hear about it. So we would not be able to do that with this event without sponsors. I know John Yu is not able to make it today, but I'll speak to Office Evolution. So Office Evolution is a co-working space in the Tysons area. It's a national organization. But what's different from WeWork, Make Office, etc., is that it is owned and operated as a franchise. So John is the entrepreneur owner of Office Evolution. So he's a great partner coming up with creative programming. They have space where you can speak, where you can deliver events. We usually meet at Office Evolution in Tysons. So we're sad that we're not able to do that right now, but we love seeing everybody on video. And then Reggie, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about Enthuse Creative as our coffee sponsor.
Good morning, everybody. Reggie Holmes with Enthuse Creative. I'm happy to be the virtual coffee sponsor. So please enjoy some delicious virtual coffee on my behalf today. But my company helps businesses with their branding, and particularly in this time, their digital brand presence and positioning. So we love to partner with small businesses, particularly professional services firms and companies, to help them elevate their brand presence. And that's really important now because more and more business opportunities are taking place in the digital space. So happy to be here with everybody, and thanks so much.
Thank you so much. And Reggie, I know you've got some events coming up, so please make sure to drop them in chat as well. Great. So just a quick FYI for a virtual meeting, how this will work. We are recording this. It is Facebook Live. As I mentioned before, if you click on the participants button in the menu, you can raise your hand. You can also drop questions in chat. You can message Justin directly or one of the organizers. If the organizers would just sort of wave their hands in a royal type way. So John, Tony, Donnell, Justin, myself, Myosha is on here, and Laura Dream. We're here to help you. So please, let us know if you need anything. The other thing I would say is for our presenter, for Margot, folks are going to ask you lots of questions. This is a chatty bunch. So hopefully the questions and the input will be concise, and then your answers can also be concise, because we want to get as many ideas and comments and questions to you as possible.
And not to be a snob, but there are 8 of you who have not logged into the app, and I might periodically message you if you haven't.
In the friendliest, nicest way.
Yes, of course.
Maybe, Tony, if you sang that request or rapped it, maybe there would be more engagement. Just a thought. Okay, so with that, Justin, I'm going to turn it over to you as our moderator to get us started and kick us off.
All right, awesome. So today we have Margot Thomas, and she is the owner of Thomas Law and Office. So Margot, if you'd like to introduce yourself and get started.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Margot Thomas. I'm the founder of the Thomas Law Office. We are based in Fairfax, in the city of Fairfax in Virginia. And I'll just start talking a little bit, or our challenge question today is how to niche down our law practice to business partnership disputes. And I'll start with a little background about me and how we got started. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, go Midwest, and I came out to DC for law school. I've been here ever since. I went to Catholic in DC, and I went to law school purely because I love Law and Order, I can tell you that. It's a little bit different in real life, but my first job out of law school was doing litigation and civil litigation, basically representing businesses and commercial disputes. I'm still doing that since I graduated from law school in 2007, so it's 13 years later, I'm still doing that. But after working for a number of big law firms in Tyson's Corner, I decided to open my own law firm in 2016 and do the same work, but just do it a little bit differently. So we still do business disputes, but that practice area, and you can move to the next slide, that practice area is very broad. And the goal is to give more flexible service. Now that I'm not at the big firm, we don't have billable hour requirements. We don't have to be in the office and have FaceTime just to be there, just to show our face. We can give more flexibility to our business clients. We can be more efficient. We can use more technology. We can pivot when we need to. There were a lot of things that I loved about big law practice. I thought it was a great opportunity to get a lot of experience with a lot of needs that small businesses have. But I think that as a small firm, I can take that experience that I learned in the big firm environment and just add a lot more to it. A great example would be with everything that's going on with COVID. I mean, it was very simple to pivot to just, working from home, and all of us working from home because we had all of that technology and everything set up. We didn't have a ton of, files. Everything was online, everything was scanned, all of our technology, we were already using Vonage. It was just very easy to do that because we were small and we could be so flexible. So the business litigation framework has a number of subsets to it. There's some of them are listed here. There's commercial landlord-tenant issues that come up, real property issues, debt collection when you have a contract with another business and they're not paying your bills, intellectual property, dealing with websites and things like that, domains. But our goal, and you can move to the next slide, is to change the disputes that we're handling. So right now, litigation means we're only representing people that are about to be sued or want to sue somebody related to a commercial dispute. But we'd like to niche down even more. I think that litigation is very broad, and I feel like, the more you can niche, the more you can become more knowledgeable about a specific practice area and narrow your clients to those practice areas, the more successful we'll be. And one of the practice areas that is of particular interest to me and cases that we handle a lot are business partnership disputes. And that's, we've represented law firms, medical practices, kitchen and bath stores. It runs the gamut, but it's two people who usually family members or close friends who went into business together and now want to go their separate ways. And they're having to deal with how do we get off a lease that's that's guaranteed. One of the business partners wants to take all the clients. One of the business partners is on the bank account and isn't allowing the other person access. I mean, there's just a gamut of issues that people face when everything was in one pot and they were sharing it. And now they can barely, talk to each other and be in the same room. And now they're trying to separate everything. I mean, it's pretty much like a marriage, but a business marriage that's going through a divorce. So instead of just handling people that come into the door that say, look, this vendor isn't paying me, we have this dispute with this other business and, we sent them the goods and they didn't pay us because they have an issue with the quality. We want to niche down further and just say, we want to represent business owners who are breaking up, that are going through the business divorce. And as an offset of that, we want to focus on the issues that those business owners are having, like I said, the lease disputes. That they're both on the lease. They need to get out. They need to negotiate with their landlord so they can go their separate ways. Contracts that they're both on, and one of them wants to get out. There's usually a lot of issues with somebody is stealing clients or money or documents, or they're not, letting everyone have full transparency with everything because they're usually very mad and upset and have some, there's just a lot of emotion because, a business is like a child to some, to most of us. And when you're going through a breakup, it can be just as emotional as, going through a divorce with your spouse. And a lot of our clients are spouses that actually went into business together and now are separating in their marriage and in their business. So I think the advantages of niching down even further, it will be direct marketing. It'll be simpler to say, these are our clients and this is what we do. And it's, one uniform message to everyone. Eventually, I'd like to transition more to flat fee work instead of hourly. I think that our clients will benefit a lot from that. There'll be more certainty with how much this is going to cost them to get through. And I think that the more we focus on just doing business partnership disputes, the more we'll be able to understand exactly how much that will cost, how we can set up a flat fee model and run with that. And I just in general believe that niches are more successful. There's just a ton of advantages, and I think that the general practitioner, I think people are moving away from that. People want to go to a specialist. They want to go to somebody that they know knows their business and knows exactly what they're going through and isn't a jack of all trades. So that's where we're at. You can go to the next slide. This is my contact information. If anybody, wants to follow up with me after the question and answer today. And I'll just end with our question, which is how do we niche down even further to just handling business partnership disputes and the offshoot litigation that comes from that? Thank you.
So Justin will lead us through the Q&A. And I'm going to kick us off with just a quick question, Margot. What have you done so far to niche down? Like, do you have new messaging, new offers? Have you tried any of these messages and gotten any initial feedback? Sort of where are you in the test and learn process? Great presentation, by the way.
We do a ton on LinkedIn, and we have definitely changed our messaging on LinkedIn to focus just on business partnership disputes. And I think we've gotten a lot of feedback on that. So it's been successful.
Cool. So next with the question, we have Reggie Holmes and then Rosemarie after that. Reggie.
Yep. Hi, Margot. Great presentation. My question is from an approach standpoint. Have you thought about how? Okay, so you made the analogy between a marriage, and these business partnerships. And so when I think about that, I think about how there's like a beginning, there's a middle, and an end. And so, just as a way of sort of communicating all the things that somebody needs to think about as they are, from the beginning, considering, forming a partnership, to the middle of it when everything is good and things are working properly, to, an eventual dissolution of that. So I think a great way to communicate, the value that you add is to show people how you're valuable throughout every step of that process. So a clear, here's what we can do for you at the beginning. Here's what the value that we offer in the middle. And, should it come to a point where you have to dissolve that partnership, here's how we help. And even, the fallout from that, sort of the post, post consequences or whatever. So I think that would be a great way to sort of show that you are a valuable partner, not just when things go south, but even before you get to that point, because oftentimes people just don't think about those things. They think it will be the way it was in the beginning, throughout the life cycle. And a lot of times that's not the case. And you can help them at that point to think about things that they should consider, in the very beginning. So great job.
Thank you.
All right. And Rosemarie, you have a question, then Talmar.
Yeah, hi Margot, great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. I have a really quick question for you, and then I have some feedback. How are you finding most of your clients today?
It's all referral based. I mean, we do get some people just online looking at our website, going to LinkedIn, but most of it is through referrals. I get a lot of referrals from the attorneys that I used to work with at the other firms, and just being out in the community, name recognition. Things like that.
Okay, awesome. So here's my feedback then. I would double down in two directions. One is on referrals, but beyond the lawyer community, there's probably a lot of accountants, CPAs, people working around the business process who these dissolving partnerships are reaching out to help them to untangle things like the money. I would start with CPAs and local, financial consultants, even CFPs, because they may be figuring, before I dissolve the company, what do I have to do for my own financial planning, right? And then the other thing I would say is, and this kind of rolls a little into Reggie's point and something Jen mentioned, you might want to start generating some online content for thought leadership. Nobody likes to talk about divorce, but it's a painful process, divorce, right? So you can sort of play up the thing that people understand. They understand how a marriage dissolves. They may not understand how a business dissolves. And so putting a little thought leadership out there that you can then drive people into. So that's a longer term process, and there are way better people here to help you work through that than but I wanted to bring that to your attention. So good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Talmar, you have a question?
Hi, Margot. Great presentation. My name's Talmar. My background is managing law firms, and for the last 11 years, I've been a business strategist. So I've been dealing with those partnerships. You and I definitely need to connect. I put my details in the notes. But to niching down, I think that if you can, it's been said before, really get to and again, a good marketing person will help you with this, get to that pain point of what happens before they divorce that would be really helpful, right? Because there's things that, you know, they start, one person is just not pulling their weight. Like you said, you know, all these pain points. I heard you say them, right? One person's not pulling their weight. So are you the other part of the partnership that's carrying all the weight? You know, come talk to us. But to that, if you don't have it internally, your strategic partnerships then are going to be business coaches and life coaches, because a lot of life coaches get those business, you know, owners that are stressed out with their whole lives, and they find out it's because they're carrying too much of the business and they haven't really confronted their partners. And so make sure that you're going down the route of them seeking help and where they're getting that help, because I think that's where you can put your message. Does that make sense? Because they're definitely going to come looking for you as soon as they have a need. But if you can get in their loop before the need, you're going to get them set up for even greater success when that need happens. So I do like what they were saying earlier. And I think that you're going down the right path and just being all partner. Now, did you say, do you have people inside that do transactional as well as litigation, or do you just do litigation?
There are 3 of us, and 2 of them do transactional work. I only do litigation.
Okay, good.
So there is an offshoot from some of their work that, you know, comes back to us as litigation. But most of it comes from, you know, outside referrals.
No, that's great. So I was gonna say, if you do have internal people that work with businesses on setting up those partnerships, like it was mentioned before, that's your great funnel of keeping that, you know, they set up the transaction, they hand you, make sure you get introduced at that early stage and you just stay top of mind, so that if it doesn't work out, which, you know, we really wanted to, but we know a lot of them do not, you're top of mind. So I think that those 2 would be my best suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very helpful.
All right, Tony has a question, and then Jen has another question. So go ahead, Tony.
Okay, Margot. This is back to Rosemarie's point, which was actually spot on, and that is, you know, doing a lot of content, publishing. You're a lawyer, you're a writer. Start writing, you know, commentary, case studies, posting them up like that, so that people can relate to what they're going through and see what your, you know, what your expertise is. But my layer on to hers was make them funny. And here's why. It's a painful subject. And if you can sit there and make someone laugh off of relating a painful, you know, I mean, divorce is painful enough. When businesses do it, there's a lot, it's tragic. There's a lot of infighting, but sometimes, and people don't really key on this, there are a lot of funny things, stupid things people will do when a business is breaking up. I know I've seen a few of them. I've seen partnerships break up, and people will just, you know, perfectly normal, perfectly sane people will do BS crazy stuff, in vengefulness, just like in a divorce. And if you can relate some of those in a funny way that get people to laugh, they'll remember that, and they'll think back to you about when they're going through it, and they'll remember you and go back to you on that. And I'm sure that, you know, as we were talking before, you know, you certainly have, you know, some funny, related things, and have a great sense of humor. So use that in your writing and get them to connect with you, because you'll get more followers with something funny than something serious.
I love that. That's very helpful. Thank you.
All right, Jen, and then Deb Cohen.
I'm not very funny, so I don't always recommend funny, but Tony always does, so I appreciate that. I would go more for relatable, where people see themselves in the problem you're painting, and then they can engage. But honestly, it depends on the brand you're building. My question would be, and it's along a similar vein, is I think people are looking for inspiration and ideas right now. And so as a law firm working on business partnerships, the other angle you could take would be to highlight really powerful examples of how businesses could be collaborating and what contracts or partnership ideas they might want to make sure they have in place, because they can be jumping into a collaborative, arrangement, but not have a contract that protects them. So I would try to highlight businesses who are doing it well, how they solved it, what the contract has allowed them to go do, and how it's got clarity, and how it's also protecting both parties. Because I do think a lot of businesses right now are needing to collaborate and innovate together. So I'd love to get your thoughts on, have you seen that? Do you have thought leadership ideas on which different, which vehicles might make sense to protect each party in a collaborative sort of approach. Because those examples, I think, can be really powerful.
I agree with that. I think it is powerful. Most of the cases that we see, because the business partners are very close friends or family members or relatives, they usually take very little to no steps to protect whatever they bring into the business. If it's IP or, money or their experience, whatever it is, they usually do not protect it at all because they have such a trust factor with their business partner. And it's interesting when you see people who they don't know each other, but they, have similar skill sets and they decide to go into business together. In those situations where they're collaborating with another outside business, they usually do take the steps to get everything in place and get contracts to protect themselves because they don't know the people as well. But when you're dealing with your spouse, you feel like it's not necessary. So.
Okay. Next we have Deb Cohen and then Phyllis. Deb.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much. Very interesting presentation, Margot. Thanks so much for doing that. Couple things. I'm an author and a management consultant, but I also do expert witness work on employment cases. And so a couple thoughts for you in terms of the partnership concept, and that is, well, who can you partner with to get where you want to be? And so, for example, there's a woman, I haven't seen her recently, but she's come to these meetings before. Her name is Robin Grain. She does mediation for divorces. And it may well be that working with other attorneys who do work on divorces, and if it is a family affair where there's a business that's breaking up as well as perhaps a marriage or something like that, that might be a way for you to partner with somebody who doesn't do what you do, but who is still in the legal realm. Because one of the things that I see happening is that if you have, even if it's a niche, if you have somebody that you are working with as an attorney, you might go to them and say, I have this other problem. Can you help me with that? Or can you recommend somebody? And so creating those partnerships might be helpful. And then frankly, on the expert witness side, I'm not sure how this would work, but are there other, in the expert witness realm is working with them to say, okay, can you make recommendations for me and partnerships for me? Because they may be working with other firms who can then refer business to you. So just a couple thoughts there, and I'll put my contact information in the box. And if you want to be connected to Robin on the mediation side, I'll be happy to do that.
Absolutely, please do. I think that would be a great connection. Thank you.
Dr. Deb Cohen.
All right, Phyllis, and then Aria's after Phyllis. So go ahead, Phyllis.
Good morning. Hi, my name's Phyllis Simon. Margot, I really enjoyed your presentation. And actually yesterday when the email came out with Thomas Law Firm, I clicked on your website and I was really impressed with your website. I feel like it really describes how it gives off a sense of professionalism and how much experience you have, but then you're also bringing it to a personal level. So it's not so intimidating as, the big law firms. So Deb, I totally agree with Deb. She took the words out of my mouth. I think I'm an intellectual property attorney. And so one of my clients a while back, he had a business with his wife and then they got divorced. And so, they split up the physical assets of their business. Like he got the phone, she got the fax machine. But when I was talking to him about his intellectual property, it was clear that they did not have any sort of plan or even consideration of their intellectual property. So they clearly needed someone like you to step in. So, I was thinking along the lines of Deb that you could get your name out with other divorce attorneys so that when they have clients who share a business, they can refer that portion to you. The other thing I was thinking is because you want to be recognized as an expert, I mean, you already are an expert, but you want your name to get out there, maybe start talking to startups for best practices for avoiding the problems that you're seeing at the end of the business life. So, in that case, you're getting to you're getting to an audience well before they need you. But at the same time, a lot of startups fail within the first 2 years. So you could still be fresh in their mind of like, hey, I remember that lady, she talked about all the things we should have done. We didn't do them and now we're in trouble. So I should call her up before my business partner does. So those are my 2 thoughts.
I think that's really helpful. A lot of people talk about, these are the contracts you should have in place just from like a transactional perspective. But, from what I'm doing, I've been trying to do more seminars on, listen, these are the 5 things people don't do if they have a contract, they don't have these clauses. And these are the clauses that really are going to matter if you end up in a courtroom fighting over these assets. And I think that's a great message and information.
Awesome. All right, Aria, you have a question as well?
I'll put it like this. Number one, thank you for coming on, because I'm actually dotting I's and crossing T's today as a startup. So it's kind of prescient that you're saying the things you are. But as far as, I guess, niching down, and I want to understand what you mean by that. When you say you want to focus on this one area, but you want to market to a broader audience that you do this one thing. As somebody who's been in digital marketing for a long time, the one tactic I would use is, if you're doing seminars or you're doing any sort of class or vlogging or blogging or whatever, you're talking about the 5 things you won't do or the 5 things you should do or whatever it is. If you consistently do a 30-second, 1 minute, 2 minute clip every week on something like LinkedIn, and you tag all of your contacts you already have and any new contacts that you meet on this weekly thing, you will build up a weekly audience and increase your brand, because if your contacts are local, you will increase your brand locally within that environment and become, not that you aren't already an expert, but a even wider known expert in your field in the area where you want to get business. And it's a way, instead of trying to advertise yourself in a digital space that gets clouded and confused, you also want to niche your advertising or your marketing so that it's focused on that one group, not just what you do, but how you present what you do. And so I'd focus on platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn and even Twitter to some degree, but you want to only tag those people or organizations that are in your area or wherever you consider your practice area to be. And once you figured out what that is, they will bring other people to the table. That's not the hard part. People always confuse that about marketing. It's not actually getting an audience. It's consistency. So if you build a marketing product for yourself, like I said, 30 seconds, 60 seconds long, 2 minutes long, something that's easily digestible with simple points, what that ends up doing is making people want to keep returning to hear from you, and the marketing is done for you at that point. And it's actually not that hard. What people usually fail on is the consistency. It isn't even reaching out to people. They're usually really good at that. It isn't making a compelling product. Actually, most people can make something compelling. It's the consistency. It's, can you do it a year from this conversation? And can you do it 2 years from this conversation? Because the real progress you'll see is a year and 2 years, because you've done it every week. So that's my 10 cents there.
Thank you. It's very helpful. I agree that consistency is hard.
It is. It is.
Caroline, you asked a question here at the bottom. If you'd like to ask, go for it.
Sure. Margot, are you repurposing any of the content from the webinars that you're putting in? Because Aria made a really good point of, having those quick clips. And if you're already doing the webinar and you're pressing record, you can just take that video and splice it up really, really simply, where you're giving like a little bit of a nugget, and you can almost leverage that potentially as a way to market your upcoming webinar. So like as a little taste. I don't know if you're doing anything like that or repurposing content in different ways.
I've done no webinars. I need to do
Okay.
some webinars. So I've done seminars where it's like continuing legal education for other attorneys. And I do a lot of those. But I think that webinars are really the key, because those you can, like you said, splice up and put on LinkedIn and, repurpose in other ways. And that's something that, is certainly on the to-do list and I think will be very helpful.
Yeah, awesome.
Deb, you have another question?
Just a comment, actually. Two things. One, to follow on the last comment, podcasts. There are lots of folks who are doing podcasts right now, and many of them are free, and it's content that you can then put up on your website, or a link to whatever that content is. I've done 3 podcasts in the last month, which has been kind of fun and not something that I had really pursued before. But going back to the discussion earlier about content and putting content up on your website, that's a great idea. And you can certainly do that yourself, or you can have, others write the content for you and it's still branded as yours if you don't have the time or so forth. But the one thing I wanted to suggest is there's something called HARO, Help a Reporter Out, HARO. And you can sign up to be on the distribution list, and every day you get 3 different email pushes. And essentially what this is are reporters who are looking for experts that they can quote or comment on when they're doing a story. And I've on various times when I've had more time, I've done that. And so I've been quoted in the media, and it could be anything from a smaller news outlet to a bigger news outlet. But it puts you on not just the local stage, but the national stage. And then you can, again, cite those on your website to say, look, I'm an expert and I've been cited here. And it takes 5-10 minutes to look through the list of HARO, stuff that comes out and to determine, is there anything in there that, I might be able to use? And what I've done is I have created a blurb about who I am, so that it's ready at the get-go, so that when I see something come through, I can respond and say, here's how I would respond to your question, 3 points. And then I have this boilerplate of all the information about me that I just stick right in there. So it's pretty easy. It's pretty, turnkey. You clearly have to answer the question, but it's a way to get some free publicity. I'll put that in the tag here.
Can I ask you, how were you able to get podcasts, or what do you feel like is the most successful way to get your name out there to get on people's podcasts?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I'm a research fellow with a group called the Conference Board, and I wrote a book earlier this year, and they asked if they could, interview me about my book, which we did, and we actually focused it on COVID, about how you can do so that helped. And then from that, somebody heard about it, and they said, great, I can introduce you to so and so, who then said, I have these 2 channels, let's do 2 podcasts. So I would look for those opportunities, maybe sort of an organic and networking kind of thing. I have heard of people who pay others to do podcasts. I'm not a big fan of that. I think you should be able to grow organically, but just again, look through your contacts and look at the podcasts that you respect, that you might want to do, and see if there's a way in the door that way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Alan, you have a question, then Aria after that.
I guess I have a couple of questions. First of all, what do you mean by niche down our law practice? Do you mean find leads for your particular services?
So right now, if, for example, we've represented management companies or real estate developers that have commercial properties, and let's say they have a business tenant who isn't paying or is causing disruption to other tenants, we would say, great, we can help you negotiate with that tenant or evict them if necessary, or do, that's commercial litigation, the crux of it. Lots of, landlord tenant, real estate disputes, things like that. That definitely falls under the litigation umbrella. But I would like to niche down so that we are dealing with business partners that are having disputes with their landlords, or the issues, specifically dealing with business partnerships. And I think that means that when the, real estate developer comes and says, look, I'm just having trouble with my vendor or my client, we might need to actually turn that work away so that we can focus more on our ideal client avatar.
Okay, I'm still not exactly following that. It sounds like what you need to do is figure out what your target market is.
Our target market is professional service companies that are, business partners that are divorcing.
Okay. Well, one of my thoughts was that if somebody has a problem, the problem doesn't arise today. It's been rising and festering for the last 6 to 9 months. Typically in sales, I find that most of my business comes from people I've talked to for 6 or 9 months. So probably my suggestion would be you start contacting people. Only a subset of them are going to end up having your problem. But if you don't, you got to contact the people and let them know your services are available. One of the things you can do is hire people like at $10 an hour. Somebody told me they're actually hiring people at $10 an hour to contact people on LinkedIn. And when they get a response, then they get involved in the conversation. But you can hire somebody to contact all of those a bunch of companies for you, and develop let's say a list of suspects, and then hopefully keep in touch with them, send them information and so forth, so that maybe if 6 to 9 months to a year from now they have a need, they will contact you back. Am I making sense
Yes.
here? Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Arya, you had a question. I don't know if you still do.
Yeah, no, I did. It was, yeah, I left something out to focus in a little bit more. Whatever your particular business focus is and your select, market demographic is, when you're marketing, you are marketing you, and what you say, okay, I'm marketing to this subset, cool, but you're marketing you because they're going to buy into you. The business that you want comes from the subset that you're talking to, but you're marketing you. And so all these things that people are throwing out, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a webinar, whatever it is, a Zoom meetup, whatever it is, you can actually just do them all at the same time if you plan it correctly. So instead of having to go try to get on this podcast, you should be doing your own. But you don't have to do a separate podcast and a separate seminar and a separate plan it so that when you do your media, it can be repurposed so that the audio becomes the podcast. The webinar gets chopped up into the little pieces, but it's one thing, so that your time is precious. So you don't have time to do a million things at the same time. Do one thing that can be repurposed several different ways. So you don't necessarily want to be on everybody else's podcast. You want your own. And by the way, by getting your own and doing your own, you will be invited onto others, because that's sort of how that environment works. When you have a podcast that people listen to, people want you on their stuff too. They'll start to do collaboratives with you because they recognize how good your content is. So if you're consistent about doing it, it's really do it one time, a week, chop it up, repurpose it, and repeat that process. And you will have the webinar and the weekly 30-second spot on LinkedIn and the 30-minute podcast on Spotify. But you will have done one recording, repurposed it, and branded you to your subset in a very successful way. And like I said, if you're consistent about it, all these things that people are sort of throwing at you will actually happen for you because you're hitting all those notes, but you're doing it consistently.
Thank you.
All right, John Rudenberg, you had a question as well.
Yes. Hey, Margot, thank you so much for your presentation. It was really great. Couple of things. Because you focused on the transaction, I believe your referral base, the other allied professionals around you, and I would suggest the insurance agents who sell buy-sell agreements. I would talk to the valuation analysts, CVAs, certified valuation analysts, the people who, like in a divorce or for estate planning, when they value a business, Those are likely, some of them are accountants. Whoever suggested speaking to accountants, they should be a major lead source for you. And the business brokers. Business brokers are often called in to sell a business because the partners are in dispute. And I would work hard on building your stable of allied professionals, because when you're doing a transaction, it's the group of people who see the players before you're aware of it that are going to say, hey, call Margot, she handles this. The second comment I would make is when I had to form a business a number of years ago, I turned to one of my buddies who's a bankruptcy attorney, because he saw everything from the back end. So what could be the worst? It's great to do the planning up front to avoid the worst. And other people who spoke to best practices and promoting that, because the other two folks in your firm are probably working on that side of the business. But promoting that is a much more positive message that will get you to the same place of being the expert on the downsides. So congratulations on presenting. And my suggestion is build your referral base of other professionals who are in that workflow of a business going downhill, that are contacted before they go to somebody to break it all up.
I think that's super helpful. We deal with a lot of those professionals in, we bring them in. I deal with a lot of forensic analysts, a lot of evaluators, a lot of accountants. I mean, all of those professions are necessary. And, we've been focusing our marketing on other attorneys, not so much those professionals. And I think that's a really good idea.
Good.
Awesome. Jen, you have a question as well?
Just two quick thoughts. One is, and it's a good follow-on to John's comment, which panels are a great thing to do right now, panel webinars, where you pull together 3 or 4 partners, that not law partners, but like the people John was just mentioning, and Margot, the list of people you were just mentioning, and pick a topic and just whoever's moderating, and find a good CPA firm or a law, somebody from your law firm, a CPA firm, or somebody who's got big reach to moderate. And then it's easier to get attendees to come, and you can just provide each of you the top 3 to 5 questions and just have the moderator ask, right? So you don't have to come up with a slide presentation per se. You can just make it very engaging. The second question, you have an awesome consult call to action on the website, and even where you ask people to submit their details and you'll do a case review. My other suggestion would be to think about creating a few other lead gen pieces of content. So whether it's, the top 5 mistakes startups make in their contracts, keep it, vague enough that it's helpful, but not so specific you're inspiring them to not come work with you because they've got all the answers, right? You want it to be valuable, but you really want them to reach out. And I think you're missing an opportunity either for a white paper, a checklist, an ebook, something that people can download. And it could be something you even write with partners. It could be you do a panel and you just turn whatever the top questions were into a blog or into a downloadable thing. But if you're not doing an e-letter, a monthly newsletter, I would highly recommend doing that and growing your list. So every month you can just send out the latest. But you would also need some other lead gen pieces of content to be able to do sponsored ads on LinkedIn to grow that list, because you need something that people want to give you their email for. So just a thought.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful. I think there's certainly things that need to be added to the website to generate more leads. We do a monthly newsletter, and we do get a lot of feedback from that because it's personal. I mean, I talk about my twins and my garden and, what's going on in life and law and all of that. And we do get a lot of people who respond back to that. So that has been a good source of, staying top of mind with a lot of the people we deal with.
Great. So now I'm gonna toss it over to Donnell. He's gonna ask you the final question. Go ahead, Donnell.
Margot, amazing presentation. I do have some feedback before I give you the final question. So Aria touched on something that was very important, and so it sounds like you need to develop a sales strategy, and that sales strategy can help you develop people that fall in your niche, and there's a formula that goes to that, and I call it CPR yield CPA. Consistent, predictable actions yield consistent, predictable results. And so people need to know where to find you, how to find you, and what to find you for. And so if you develop that and a strategy to continue that messaging out to your customers, you'll draw them to you and they'll know when to find you and how to find you at all times. But that comes with a sales strategy. And that will actually free up more time so you could have that to spend with your family. Because people are all over the place. You may go on a podcast here, and you do this here, and you do that there, and you really don't have a strategy because you're all over the place trying to do everything. When you need to draw it back and do those things and only those things that will draw your customer to you. So whether it's your newsletter that you put out once a week, once a month, or once a whatever, whether it's meetings that you show up to once a week, once a month, or whatever, all of those things need to be put in a strategy, and you need to consistently be at those places. And while you're at those places, you'll draw your audience to you because they'll know where to find you. They'll be like, hey, Margot is always at 1 Million Cups on Wednesday. She can fix this issue for you. Come with me to 1 Million Cups and you'll get some great information. And plus you'll be able to meet Margot who could help you out with X, Y, or Z. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
And so, yeah, develop a sales strategy. Me and you can talk offline with something like that. I'll be happy to give you a benchmark or something that you can work with, but it's really simple. It's actually less work than everything that you're talking about, but you need those consistent, predictable actions to get those results that you're looking for. And then you also need to really tie into who is your customer, because you know what you want them to buy from you, but who is your customer and where do they hang out? Is it small businesses? Is it people that are in the sports industry or whatever? Because if everybody is your customer, nobody's your customer. And so you could draw it down to these type of customers that you target. However, they'll bring other type of customers to you. So really draw that in. So you want to niche down in both of those areas, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so that gets to the final question, which is, what can our 1 Million Cups audience do for you?
Well, there's a number of ideas that people threw out today that I want to follow up on offline. Having more conversations about marketing and presence, being connected to people that, may have a podcast or may be good referral sources or, mutually beneficial sources to, grow our business, I think would be very helpful.
Thank you again. It was an outstanding presentation. I'm glad that you made it. Hopefully we'll see you every week so I can start bringing clients to you here. Thank you so much.
It's good to see you. It's been too long.
I know, right? Jen, is back to you.
So if we want to go to the next slide, and Murray, that was an awesome presentation. We saved the chat. We'll get you those notes so you have all of that. Fantastic job. Great questions and ideas, everybody. We have a lot of amazing businesses scheduled over the rest of June. I can't believe we're already in June. That is craziness right there. And into July, we have a few applicants we're reviewing as well. So for anybody that's joined, if you've not heard of 1 Million Cups before, we look for applicants. They can apply at 1millioncups.com/Fairfax. You tell us a problem challenge, just one. So Margaret did a great job of saying, how do I niche in business partnerships? And we shared lots of ideas, mainly focused around marketing. because you've already been doing a lot of the messaging. But we have businesses who are literally an idea. They don't have anything yet, to businesses who are 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, who are pivoting and want feedback. So that's a great way for business owners in our community to leverage this group, is to bring a challenge question. And it's like a massive mastermind where you get lots of feedback and ideas, and it's free. So again, please encourage people to apply. If you're not sure and you think you might be interested, just reach out to one of the organizers. We're happy to talk with you. Aria has been a past presenter. Talmar, who always joins, she's presenting in a few weeks. We've had a lot of folks present. Natasha Hines, who's on, is going to be presenting. So please send people our way. Again, 1millioncups.com/Fairfax. All of our organizers, we volunteer for this because we believe in it and it's helpful and really makes a difference. So if you want to be an organizer, let us know that too. If you can go to the next slide, just a quick reminder on events in case you missed it in the very beginning. There's an event this evening for young professionals. It's on personal brand and LinkedIn. And then May 28th, tomorrow. So how to reopen safely in Virginia, the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority, who's been an awesome partner for us. They are delivering this webinar. You can go to their website, sign up and register for that. I would do it soon though, because they usually close registrations the day before. So if you're trying to do it the day of, which I might be meant to do sometimes, you might miss it. So register for that today. Any other thoughts, comments, please drop them in the chat. If you haven't, put your email or name. We'd love to make sure we capture that. If you go to the next slide, the presenter next week, Donnell, do you want to take a quick second and just talk about Michael on Vet Builder and just introduce him to the group? Conceptually, I know he's not on this call, but I want to give people a heads up if he's presenting next week.
No, Mike Whitlow is an amazing entrepreneur. He's a veteran and he's also a builder. He has a construction company and a local construction company that can help you restore your house to the way that you bought it and loved it, or make it even better than what you're trying to make your house look. It'll be great to have him present at 1 Million Cups. You know, he's a solopreneur, but he does have a team of individuals that work with him to do what he needs to do. And he would love the feedback from everyone in this group to be able to help him, you know, grow his business. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody next week to help out Mr. Mike Whitlow. So
if you need to partition and create an office or partition your children elsewhere in the house, he can probably help with that. But in all seriousness, not that those are things I'm thinking about. In all seriousness, thank you, everybody. Fantastic job. Thank you again, Reggie, for being a sponsor. We really appreciate that. Do reach out, connect with us online, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. Margot, one last round of applause. You are fabulous. Thank you so much for putting yourself out there and sharing about your business. That was awesome. We will see everybody next week.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Margot!
Thank you.
Now you can take us off Facebook Live, Donnell.
Oh yeah, how do I do that? Hold on, let me see. Where's the button? Oh, special. Who is this guy?